This video is not a review, it is a first impression type of video when it comes to Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. So, I have never ever played an Armored Core game. This one is my first, and after playing this one, I don't understand how I never heard about the Armored Core series up until now. I mean, not now, but prior to release of Armored Core 6. Because having invested 10 hours into this game, I can tell you that this is 100% my kind of game. And I'm confident I would have enjoyed playing this game back in the days on PS2 or PS3. I don't remember. And I also know it's going to be a pain in the ass to even try to get those games because they are old games and they're released a while ago. And Sony maybe doesn't care about old games or just, I don't know, they don't see the value yet, but it's really difficult to play those games unless you already have had them at the time. But anyway, Armored Core 6 really hit me in my special places, and I want to talk about my experience. And yeah, let's go. So the very first thing I think I need to mention is the fact that I'm using a DualSense Edge controller, which gives me access to two extra buttons located on the back of the controller. The reason why I think this is relevant is because I've never played a game which required me to have to press that many buttons at the same time. Let me explain. You have two weapons you can have in your arms, and then two weapons you can have on your back. So it means that sometimes, depending on the type of weapon you will use, you may want to be tapping, L1, R1, and then maybe you have missiles, on your back. So it's a bit different when it comes to missiles. You don't really want to tap them, you want to hold them, that way you can target enemies and then release the button. So that it's like you tapping two buttons and then holding two other buttons. And that's not all, because you need to move the character, you need to move the camera, you need to jump, you need to dash, you need to to boost, you need to do other things. So when it comes to the controls of this game, it is crazy, and I think this may already be a turn off for some people. And after 2 hours or 3 hours, I can guarantee that it gets better, because especially if you change, if you edit the buttons to something which fits your playstyle, I can assure you that after 3 hours or 2 hours, you're going to feel at home. It's going to feel much better. And yeah, I think that's something you need to know about Armored Core, because this game is really demanding when it comes to how focused or how precise you need to be, because especially in boss fights, it can get very overwhelming, and you don't even have time to think, because while you're thinking, the boss is killing you, so you don't have time to think. You need to be pressing 5, 6 buttons at the same time, trying to survive, and sometimes it's not even enough. So yeah, I feel like having that controller did give me an edge. But I mean, oh, pun intended, by the way. It did give me some kind of advantage, and I don't know if I could actually have made it if it wasn't for the fact that I had access to two buttons I could remap freely. But I do think that I may have been able to make it, because the game does allow you to freely remap your layout anyway. So you should know that if you feel like the control is not working for you, you should change them to something which better fits your playstyle. And don't give up just yet on the game. It gets better. It gets way better. One thing I learned as a newcomer to the series is that you get to freely, I mean, you are given so much freedom when it comes to customizing your mecha. It actually gets crazy. You get to choose your weapons, you get to choose your legs, your chest armor. I'm going to call it chest armor for now. You get to choose your head, and every single thing you choose matters. It's going to matter because you have some builds you can come up with, and I feel like it's all about being as efficient as possible. You can be tanky, but you won't be able to move as much. Oh yeah, you can be lightweight, but you won't be able to tank that many attacks or carry heavy weapons, and heavy weapons usually deal a lot of damage. And I love when a game does that. I love stakes, I love having to mess around with builds. And if you're familiar with the channel, you already know that I like meddling, with builds and trying to come up with the most optimal ones. I'm doing it right now in Remnant 2, and Armored Core 6 feels like the game, the game. I mean, after maybe Elden Ring, all the Fromsoftware games, but it feels like a game where builds do matter, especially for some bosses. You will want to make sure that you equip the right thing, the right set of weapons or gear to be able to overcome that particular encounter. And I love that. And also you get to choose the color of your robot. You get to choose some logos, some things to really make that mecha yours. And I love that. I truly love that. And I really hope that's something they didn't bring now, and something that was always there, because I really love that. Something else I really like is how simple the game is. So you play as Raven, also known as 621. I mean, Raven is not really your name, it's more like the name you identify as. It's a bit complex, and it's going to make sense if you play the game, but yeah, you play as Raven, and you go on those missions where you have to maybe infiltrate a compound. You need to locate some logs and access them, bring them back, or maybe you need to defeat or investigate. I feel like when it comes to diversity, the missions are not repetitive, like at all. Even if you feel like you're doing the same thing, you are not, and I like that. And whenever you complete a mission, you go back to your mother base where you can see what kind of gear you unlocked and what mission awaits you next. Some missions will move the story forward. Some other missions will give you more insights when it comes to what is happening around you. And I also like the fact that you get to choose if you want to do them right away or maybe a bit later. But something you will definitely want to do is spend some time fighting in the arena, where you get to encounter sometimes mini bosses you already fought, but this time, upon defeating those mini bosses, you get access to chips which are used to further increase your capabilities, such as your output damage, your resistance to damage, your even give you some new, very interesting abilities, such as an exploding shield, which can stun some enemies if the impact was already about to be fully filled. So it's also like a great way to repel enemies, and it's actually one of my favorite abilities in the game. So you have a lot to do. You have a lot to customize. So what about the actual game? How difficult it is? How easy it is? Well, I am a hard mode seeker. I tend to gravitate toward harder difficulties or harder games, not because I want to torture myself. No. I feel like there's a fine line between difficult and tedious, and I play difficult games or difficult difficulties mostly because I want to challenge myself. I want to overcome the difficulty and eventually learn something new, because that's when you learn, whenever you are facing adversity. And when it comes to Armored Core 6, I feel like you will very see the difficulty in this game whenever you are fighting bosses, especially chapters, the bosses you will face by the end of the chapter. Those ones are very difficult, and right now I already defeated 3 of them, and they were all equally toxic, especially the first one. I think it's Boltus the bastard. Yeah, that guy, he kicked me for like 30 or 1 hour, I don't remember, but it felt like a lifetime. But eventually, it never feels like the boss is too hard. It's most likely going to be about whatever you are using or how you are playing. And bosses definitely 100% will kick your ass, and become a challenge. But when it comes to normal enemies, I can't help but feel like they don't quite match the type of difficulty you will have whenever you are facing a boss. It almost feels like on a scale from 1 to 10, the bosses in this game are epic and they sit at maybe a 9, 9 or 8. And then the normal enemies are like 2, 2 or 3, even including some like special type of enemies, normal enemies you will encounter. And I feel like that's kind of weird. You would want some consistency, like maybe enemies, like normal enemies, will be around 6. That way you can actually feel like you are, whatever build you're using is significant. But I feel like the only way to know for a fact that a build is working is by facing a boss. But the good thing is you get to replay missions whenever you want. So you can go back and maybe play different playstyle and try a different build to see if you were just bad at the game or if, the build you were using was just the issue. So I feel like getting good in Armored Core is also knowing what build you should use and when. More importantly, you also want to explore and gather some logs by defeating some enemies, which are like some special enemies. And yeah, so far, honestly, the boss fights are epic. And whenever you overcome and succeed, you really feel like you did something and it wasn't just luck. It is never luck. But one thing I do I do find interesting is the targeting system. I feel like this is a Fromsoftware game through and through, and sometimes the hitboxes, you really feel like you dodged a hit, but you still get hit, and sometimes you get hit and you don't know what hit you. It's very weird. Like sometimes I rewatch the video, but I still can't find out where those missiles came from. Maybe the boss shot them like 2 hours ago, and they only decided to hit me now. But yeah, those damn bosses. I love this game. Honestly, when it comes to fun, I've had fun in Remnant 2. I've had fun in so many other games this year, and I can't help but feel like 2023 is a blessed year with how many games we are getting. And I mean, some of them are really bad. Don't get me wrong, some of them are really, really, really bad. But then you have this game which I didn't know anything about, and I'm like, oh my god, this is slowly becoming my favorite game. I mean, not my favorite game of 2023. This is still, it still belongs to Resident Evil 4 remake, but this might be the most fun game I've played this year after Resident Evil 4, which is crazy because we have so many other games on the way, and oh my god, it's one of those moments where you feel lucky to be alive, lucky to be able to play those games and experience something anew every single time. And if you were on edge when it comes to Armored Core, I would say give it a try. I know it may not feel like your type of game, but you never know. I feel like a fun game is always going to be a fun game, especially if you already know what to expect from software. They never are linear in the way they tell a story, and it almost feels like Dark Souls with robots. Yes, sometimes, but I feel like the game has a lot of strengths which are not even I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, as a first timer who played the first ever Armored Core game, I want more. I want more. I want to finish the game. I want to go back and I want to kick everybody's ass. And before I forget, this game does have multiplayer. You unlock it, I think after chapter 2, I don't remember. But yeah, you can compete against other people. I don't know how it works yet. I haven't tried it. But it's going to add some more longevity to the game, and I'm all for it. So anyway, I'm Chiso. I'm having a blast, and I hope you are too. Don't be afraid to play the game. It is. I admit it is overwhelming at first, but it gets better down the road if you're willing to give it a chance. Drop a like, subscribe if you want to see more Armored Core content, and I'll see you on the other side. Peace.